Last thing I expected to find inside my old moving box was a grocery list in my own handwriting, taped to a notebook where someone had written what time I came home, and I stayed quiet as something in me cracked. I am Lorelei, I am 31, and I work as a patient advocate at a mid-sized hospital. I spend my days translating fear into plans people can actually follow. I thought I understood humans pretty well. Then I met Wilder. We met freshman year in a campus laundry room that always smelled like dryer sheets and burnt popcorn from the vending machine down the hall. I was half asleep, guarding my quarters like they were treasure, when I noticed a guy sitting alone on the plastic chair by the folding tables. He was not on his phone. He was not reading. He was writing, not doodling, not homework. Writing lines, neat columns. Left side, person. Right side, behavior when leaving. I remember the way my skin prickled, like I had walked into a room and accidentally interrupted something private. I should have turned around. Instead, I said, "Is that like a screenplay?" He looked up slow, like he had to lift his focus with effort. His eyes did not do the normal human thing. They did not brighten. They did not soften. They just landed on me steady. "No," he said. "It is data." I laughed because that felt safer than admitting I was unsettled. "Data about what?" "People," he said, like it was obvious. "They behave differently when they think no one is watching. I am trying to learn the patterns." I stared at him, then at the notebook, then back at him. I waited for the punchline. He did not give one. He just went back to writing, like I was a passing weather event. I should have walked away, but my dryer buzzed and I had to stand there anyway. I started folding my clothes faster than necessary, the way you do when you feel exposed. After a minute, he said, without looking up, "You are folding your shirts with the logos facing inward. That usually means you are self-conscious about brand perception." My hand stopped mid-fold. Heat crawled up my neck. "You watch people," I said. "I observe," he corrected, still calm. Watching implies emotion. That was my first real lesson with Wilder. He spoke like a manual, like someone had been handed a world in pieces and decided to assemble it with logic. He introduced himself the next week in our dining hall, sitting across from me without asking, opening his tray like he had scheduled it. "Wilder," he said, "you are Lorelei. You prefer the corner table because it reduces peripheral interruptions." I blinked. "Do I?" "You do," he said. Then he added almost thoughtfully, "Your laugh is usually a deflection. You laugh when you are uncomfortable, and also when you are trying to make other people comfortable. Both serve the same function." I felt my cheeks burn again. "Okay, that is unsettling." "It is accurate," he said. I told myself he was just socially weird, a little intense, the kind of guy who would become an engineer and forget to eat lunch. Then I saw him in the mirror. It was before a dorm party, music thumping through cheap speakers, people yelling down the hall. I stepped into the shared bathroom, and there he was, alone, facing the mirror like it was an opponent. He lifted the corners of his mouth with 2 fingers, held it, relaxed, tried again, practicing not because he was nervous, not because he wanted to look good, because he had to remember what a smile looked like. He noticed me in the reflection. He did not jump. He did not look embarrassed. "This is necessary," he said. "Smiling increases social acceptance." I stood there with my toothbrush in my hand, frozen by the fact that he was saying it out loud like it was normal. "Wilder," I whispered, "do you even want to go to the party?" He considered the question like it had weight. "I want the information. Parties are useful. People show their true priorities." That was when I realized he was not joking. Not even a little. A month later, after I got cornered by a guy who would not take no for an answer, Wilder appeared beside me like he had been summoned. No anger, no raised voice, just a calm, almost bored presence. "Lorelei," he said, looking past me. "We are leaving." The guy scoffed. "Who is this, your boyfriend?" Wilder's gaze flicked to the guy's wrist. "Your watch is on your left hand. You keep checking it. You are anxious about being seen. That suggests you know what you are doing is wrong." The guy went red. "What?" Wilder leaned in slightly. "If you continue, I will walk you to the resident advisor and repeat everything you have said in front of witnesses. You will be forced to defend your behavior. You will not enjoy that." The guy backed off like Wilder had put a blade against his throat, even though Wilder's hands never moved. We left. My heart was pounding. My legs felt like rubber. Outside, under the harsh dorm lights, I turned to him. "Why did you do that?" He shrugged like he was adjusting a backpack strap in his mind. "You were cornered. That increases risk. Also, you looked like you might cry, and that would attract more attention. Attention would be inefficient." I hated that my relief came with a sting. I hated that I still felt grateful. That was Wilder. He never offered warmth, but he offered something else that turned out to be rarer. He was consistent. When my mother got sick during my junior year, I did not tell many people. I did not want pity. I did not want the soft voices, the awkward pauses. I wanted to stay functional. I told Wilder because he asked why I was skipping meals. The next day, he showed up at my dorm with grocery bags. Not comfort food, not cookies. Actual groceries, vegetables, protein, things. That made sense. "You will forget to eat properly," he said, setting the bags on my desk like he was delivering supplies to a field unit. "I researched meals that require minimal preparation. You have limited time and high stress. Your body will still need fuel." No hug, no sympathy face, just logic. And somehow that logic held me up when my emotions were too heavy to carry. After college, we ended up in the same city by coincidence. I say coincidence, but Wilder claimed it was optimal clustering. He lived 3 blocks away. We did not hang out like normal friends. We had routines, coffee on Sundays, grocery runs when my schedule got chaotic. He remembered everything I ever told him, even the throwaway details you say and forget you said. I told him once joking that I loved the smell of old books because my grandpa used to take me to a tiny library that had creaky floors. 2 years later, on a day I was quietly falling apart, he showed up with a secondhand copy of my favorite childhood novel. "I found it," he said. "It smells correct." I almost cried. Not because the book mattered, because he had remembered the part of me that did. Still, he frightened people. He did not mean to. He just existed like a sharp edge. He once asked me, genuinely curious, "Why do people cry at funerals if the person cannot observe the tears?" I said, "Because we miss them." He paused. "Missing is a form of pain." "Yes," I said. He nodded like he had filed it away. Pain is irrationally persuasive. When my grandfather died, Wilder drove all the way to my hometown, 6 hours in silence, just because I told him the service was on Saturday. He stood beside me the entire time, not touching me, not crying, not faking anything. When people came up to offer condolences, he watched them like he was studying a ritual. Afterward, when my aunt started asking me questions I could not answer without breaking, Wilder stepped in. "Lorelei needs water," he said calmly. "She has answered enough. This conversation is no longer productive." My aunt blinked, offended, then somehow backed off anyway. Later that night, I found him outside on the porch, staring at the dark yard. "You did not have to cut outcome, I said. He looked at me. Social support improves grief outcomes, I swallowed. So you came as a treatment plan. He hesitated, and that hesitation was the closest thing to vulnerability I had ever seen from him. I came, he said, because you asked me to. Years passed. I built a life. I got engaged to a man named Grant who looked safe on paper. Kind smile. Steady job. Great with my mother. The kind of man everyone said I deserved. Wilder did not say much about Grant. He observed. He watched how Grant spoke to servers, how he responded when I disagreed, how quickly his patience thinned when he was inconvenienced. One night after Grant left my apartment, Wilder stood at my sink washing his coffee mug like he always did. Movements precise. He does not like losing, Wilder said suddenly. I frowned. Who? Grant, he said, like he was pointing out a stain. When you corrected him earlier, his jaw tightened. He masked it quickly, but it was there. That's normal, I said too fast. People get annoyed. Wilder turned off the faucet. Annoyance is normal. Contempt is not. I felt my stomach tighten, and I hated him for making me feel it. I hated that part of me listened. I love him, I said. Wilder held my gaze. Love does not remove risk. I should have asked what he meant. I should have dug into that sentence like it was a splinter. Instead, I brushed it away, because brushing it away felt like protecting my happiness. Then Grant proposed. I said yes. Everyone cheered. My mother cried happy tears. My friends screamed in my kitchen. I posted the ring photo. My phone lit up with hearts and congratulations. Wilder texted me one line. Congratulations. I will help you plan. That was it. A week later, I found out Grant had been telling people he had saved me. Like I was a project. Like he had rescued me from my messy job and my sick mother and my complicated feelings. It was subtle. It was always subtle with Grant. He did it in jokes, in little comments at parties, in the way he corrected me gently, in front of people. I started feeling small without understanding why. Wilder noticed before I did. He started showing up more often, not clingy, just present. Like a security system you forget is running until you hear it click. Then, the night that broke everything open, it did not start with screaming. It started with something normal, something stupid, a moving box. Grant had asked me to bring down my old college stuff from storage so we could declutter before we moved in together. I hauled the boxes into my living room, sweating, hair stuck to my face, and started sorting like an obedient fiancé. Old notebooks, photos, a cracked mug from the dorm, a folded hoodie that smelled like dust and memory, and then I opened a small box labeled laundry. Inside was my old grocery list, taped to a notebook I had never seen before. The paper fluttered as I lifted it, and my chest went cold, because beneath it, in calm handwriting, were entries. Lorelei returns at night, keys in left hand, pauses before entering, checks phone, exhales, shoulders drop, safe. Lorelei laughs when uncomfortable, touches necklace when lying. Lorelei forgets to eat when stressed, drinks coffee instead, needs reminders. My fingers went numb. I could not feel the edges of the notebook anymore. I could only hear my own pulse, loud, accusing. My first thought was not Wilder. My first thought was, someone has been keeping track of me for years. My second thought was, why is it in my box? I sat on the floor with the notebook in my lap and stared at the page until my eyes burned. I did not cry. I did not move. I stayed quiet as my mind tried to fit the pieces together without shattering. Then I turned the page, and I saw Grant's name, not in my handwriting, in Wilder's. The entry was short, clean, like a verdict. Grant performs kindness publicly, withdraws it privately, prefers control, will escalate when challenged. Under that line, there was a date, not written in numbers, written out like someone knew how careful they needed to be, and below it, one sentence that made my stomach drop harder than anything else on the page. If Lorelei marries him, her autonomy decreases. My mouth opened, but no sound came out, because I finally understood the mystery that had been tugging at me for months, the one I kept refusing to name. Wilder was not studying people anymore. He was studying my future, and he had been planning something without telling me. Quick pause outside the story. When I am editing these late at night, it gets lonely, and your comments are what keep me going. Like, subscribe and tell me your city, state, or country. Alright, back to the story. I heard my front door lock click, and I did not move. I did not call out. I just held that notebook tighter, breathing shallow, listening to Grant's footsteps cross my living room like he owned it already. He stopped when he saw me on the floor. What's that? He asked, voice too casual. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I saw the impatience behind his smile. The calculation. I stayed calm. I stayed quiet. And I asked one small question that made his expression flicker. Grant, I said softly, holding up the notebook. Why is this in my box? Grant's smile held for a beat too long, like a photograph that had been edited. He stepped closer, and I watched his eyes go to the notebook, then to my face, then back to the notebook again. The air in my apartment felt suddenly thin. Why are you sitting on the floor? He asked, as if the problem was my posture. I kept my voice even. Why is this in my box? He laughed once, not warm, more like a short release of irritation. Lorelei, it's a notebook. College junk. You're spiraling. My fingers tightened around the cover. My nails pressed into the cardboard until they hurt. I had learned working at the hospital that when people are guilty, they often go big first. They try to make you feel embarrassed for noticing. They try to make you question the problem instead of the answer. So I nodded like he was right. I nodded like I was small. Okay, I said quietly. Maybe I am. His shoulders relaxed just a fraction. That was all I needed to see. He crouched down beside me, close enough that his cologne mixed with the dusty smell of old paper. His voice softened into that tone he used for my mom, for my friends, for anyone watching. The compassionate fiancé voice. You've been stressed, he said. Wedding stuff, your job, your mom's health. You're reading too much into things. I looked down at the page again. Lorelei touches necklace when lying. The line hit me like a cruel joke because my hand had drifted to my necklace. The second he started talking, he noticed it too. His eyes flicked to my fingers. A small, satisfied curve in his mouth gone almost instantly. You know what's funny? He said, picking up the notebook like it was harmless. This is the kind of thing Wilder would write. He's always been weird. My heart kicked. He knew whose handwriting it was. That meant he had looked at it before. That meant the notebook had not accidentally ended up in my box. I let him hold it. That was the other thing I had learned. People reveal more when you let them feel in control. Grant flipped a page, casual. See, it's just observations. Nothing sinister. My voice stayed calm. Then why is my grocery list taped to it? He paused. It was tiny. Just a hiccup in his motion. But it was there. I don't know, he said quickly. Maybe he did that back then. Maybe you gave it to him. You were friends. I stared at him. I never gave him my grocery lists. He shrugged too hard. So what? He's a strange guy. You knew that. He probably kept it for some reason. People like him do that. People like him. The way he said it carried a sneer, a judgment wrapped in pretend concern. I took the notebook back from his hands gently, like I was handling something fragile. Grant, tell me the truth. He stood up, and the shift in his body was immediate. He was no longer crouching beside me. He was above me, me, taller, wider. The room felt smaller under his shadow. I am telling you the truth, he said, voice sharpening. You're letting your anxiety make you paranoid. The word paranoid made my skin go cold because it was the exact word he had used the last time I caught him in a lie. A small lie, but it had made my stomach hurt for 2 days. He had told me I was imagining things. He had told me I was too sensitive. He had told me I was overreacting, and I had swallowed it because it was easier than admitting my relationship had cracks. I stood up slowly, keeping the notebook close to my chest. Did you take this from somewhere? His eyes narrowed. What? Did you take it? I repeated from Wilder's place. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He turned his head slightly, like he was checking the room for witnesses, even though we were alone. Then he sighed, like I was exhausting him. Fine, he said. Yes, I did. My stomach dropped, but I didn't flinch. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Why? I asked. He rubbed his forehead like he was the victim of my question. Because I don't trust him. I blinked slowly. You broke into his place? I didn't break in, he snapped. He gave you a spare key, didn't he? You've told me a million times how he's always prepared. I used the key. That's not breaking in. The room tilted. He had listened. He had cataloged my life the way Wilder used to catalog strangers in the laundry room. Only Grant didn't do it to understand people. He did it to use people. I heard my own voice steady in a way that didn't feel like me. You used my key to go into my friend's home without permission. He lifted his hands. Oh my God, listen to yourself. I was protecting you. From what? I asked. His eyes flashed, then softened again, quickly, like he was switching masks. From him, from whatever he is. He's not normal, Lorelei. You think he's loyal, but he's not loyal like a regular person. He's loyal like a robot, like a dog that learned commands. I swallowed and it tasted like metal. So you went into his place and stole his notebook. I didn't steal it, he said. I borrowed it, and honestly, you should be thanking me. Look at what he wrote. He's been profiling you for years? That's insane. I held up the page with his name on it, and this part about you. This warning. Grant's face went blank, and that was the most terrifying expression he had ever worn. The warmth drained out of him like someone turned off a light. Give me that, he said quietly. I stepped back. No, his voice stayed low, controlled. Lorelei, give it to me? My hands shook, but my spine stayed straight. I forced my voice to remain calm. Why does it matter? He took a slow breath. Because it's private. Private, I repeated, tasting the word. Like going into someone's apartment without permission is private? His eyes hardened. You're being dramatic. I nodded again softly. Okay. He blinked, thrown off by my agreement. He was used to me arguing. He was used to me trying to prove my feelings were valid. He was used to me pleading for understanding. I didn't do any of that. I walked past him toward the kitchen counter. My phone was there. He watched me like he thought I was going to call Wilder immediately and start a fight. Instead, I set the notebook down, opened my phone, and started typing. Grant's shoulders loosened. He leaned back against the wall like he had won. What are you doing? He asked, voice lighter. I'm ordering dinner, I said. His eyebrows lifted. Seriously? I kept my eyes on the screen. You're right. I'm stressed. I'm hungry. Let's eat. He stared at me for a moment, trying to find the trap. Then he smirked, pleased with himself. Good. That's all I'm saying. You get worked up. You jump to conclusions. I let him believe it. He went into my living room, turned on the television, and started scrolling like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just admitted to invading someone's home. Like he hadn't just shown me that my boundaries were optional to him. I stood in the kitchen, my heart pounding so hard it made my throat ache, and I did the quietest thing I could do. I took photos, not dramatic, not obvious, just steady. Each page, each line. The part about my habits, the part about my mom, the part about my grandfather, the part about Grant. Then I went one step further. I opened my notes app and wrote down exactly what Grant had said, as close to his words as I could remember while they were still fresh. I included the detail about the spare key. I included the way he had demanded the notebook back. My hands were still shaking, but my mind felt clear, cold, focused. The food arrived. Grant acted like a prince, handing the delivery person a tip with a charming smile. Then he kissed my forehead like a reward. There, he said softly. Better. I chewed without tasting. I watched him talk. I watched him laugh at the television. I watched him scroll through his phone, relaxed, confident. Sure, I had folded. I felt something inside me shift from fear into something sharper. Later, when he went to my bathroom to brush his teeth, his phone lit up on the couch beside him. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The screen was angled just enough that I could see the preview banner, a message from a contact saved as the words were short, clinical, and they made my stomach drop. She found it. My throat closed. My eyes stung. My skin went cold all over. Wilder. I sat there with the notebook heavy in my lap and the room humming around me, and I realized the question I had been avoiding was not whether Grant had stolen the notebook. The real question was why Wilder and Grant were communicating at all. I stayed still. I stayed quiet. And I felt, for the first time, like I had stepped into a plan that started long before I ever opened that box. The message sat on the screen like a stain I could not scrub out. It stayed there for a few seconds, bright and unforgiving, before the phone dimmed again. She found it. My first instinct was to run to the bathroom and demand answers. My second instinct was to pretend I never saw it. My third instinct, the one that finally felt like mine, was to do nothing at all, to stay calm, to let them keep thinking. I was the easy part of this equation. Grant rinsed his toothbrush, humming like a man with a clean conscience. I could hear him moving around in my bathroom, opening drawers like he lived here already. My stomach clenched, but I kept my face still. When he came back out, he smiled at me like we were fine, like we had not just stepped over a line that could never be uncrossed. You good? He asked, too casual. I nodded and swallowed. Just tired. He kissed my cheek. It was light, performative. Then he picked up his phone and slipped it into his pocket so smoothly I almost admired the muscle memory. I should head out, he said. Big day tomorrow. Right, I said softly. We can talk more later. He seemed relieved by that. He liked later. Later meant time for him to reshape the story. At the door, he turned and flashed that same reassuring smile. Try to sleep. And don't go down some rabbit hole about that notebook. It's not healthy. I gave him a small smile back, the kind I had practiced for years as a patient advocate, the kind that told people what they wanted to hear so they would stop pushing. Okay, I said. He left. The lock clicked. His footsteps faded down the hall. And then my body finally reacted. I sank onto the couch and pressed my palm to my chest because my heart felt too big for my ribs. I didn't cry, not yet. I felt like crying would fog my vision, and I needed my vision clear. I stood up and did the first quiet thing that mattered. I changed my locks. My building had an emergency locksmith number for tenants, and I called it with a voice so calm the woman on the other end sounded bored. I told her my key had been compromised. I did not say the word fiancé. I did not say the word betrayal. I kept it simple. She scheduled me for early morning. Then I did the second quiet thing. I called Wilder. Only I didn't call him Wilder. That was what I used to call him in college because it matched the way he felt. untamed, separate, hard to read. But the truth was his real name was Rhodes. He had told me once flatly that nicknames made relationships feel less formal. I had insisted anyway because my brain needed a story shape. Now, staring at the dark window of my apartment, I realized I needed the real him, not my softened version. Rhodes answered on the second ring. Lorelei, he said, voice level. You are awake at an unusual hour. I held the phone away from my face for half a second because hearing him say my name like that made something sting behind my eyes. I saw a message, I said. On his phone. Silence, not surprised. Just processing? You used his device? Rhodes asked. I didn't touch it, I said quickly. It lit up. I saw the preview. It was from you. And it said she found it? Rhodes exhaled once, quiet. Then my assumption was correct. My stomach tightened. What assumption? Rhodes paused. You should sit down. I am sitting, I lied. I was standing in my kitchen, gripping the counter like it was keeping me upright. He spoke with that same calm, clinical precision. Your fiancé has been attempting to isolate you. He reduces your confidence with subtle corrections. He positions himself as your interpreter. He also asked me questions about your routines at your engagement party. Cold washed over my skin. He talked to you at my engagement party. I remember you barely said 2 words. I said 2 words, Rhodes replied. I listened to the rest. My throat felt dry. So you started messaging him? Yes, Rhodes said, because he started watching you the way I used to. But his intention was not comprehension. It was leverage. I felt humiliation rise like heat. You knew and you didn't tell me? Rhodes went quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was slightly softer, almost careful. If I told you without proof, you would defend him. You would doubt yourself. You would doubt me. That outcome would increase your risk. My stomach flipped. So the notebook. You left it for him to find. Yes, Rhodes said. I placed it where he would search. I wrote one line that would provoke him. He values control. He cannot tolerate being seen accurately. He would take it. My hand started shaking again. You baited him. I tested him. Rhodes corrected. You needed certainty. Certainty reduces emotional distortion. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to thank him. I wanted to collapse. All of it at once. What did you write? I whispered. Rhodes answered without hesitation that if you married him, your autonomy decreases. My throat tightened. So you knew he would react. Yes, he said. And you messaged him tonight. I said, voice cracking. She found it? Yes, Rhodes said again, still calm. He told me he was coming to see you. I asked a simple question to confirm he took the notebook. He replied. He confirmed it. My mouth opened, then shut. My brain felt like it was trying to run in 2 directions at once. Rhodes continued, voice steady. Lorelei, do not confront him aggressively. He will shift blame. He will attempt to regain control. You should focus on logistics. Remove access, document, and contact. Inform trusted parties. The way he said it made me feel both safe and sick, like I was hearing instructions for escaping a storm. I swallowed hard. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm making it bigger than it is? Rhodes didn't hesitate. You are not wrong. That certainty hit me in a place that had been starving for it. I lowered my voice. Why did you care this much? A pause. Then Rhodes said something that didn't sound like logic. Because you are important to me. My eyes burned. I stared at the dark counter and tried not to fall apart. I can't do this tonight, I whispered. You do not have to do everything tonight, Rhodes said. You only have to take the next correct step. I took a shaky breath. Okay. Also, Rhodes added, and there was the faintest edge of something unfamiliar in his tone. Your fiancé's name is not Grant. My body went still. What? Rhodes spoke like he was reading a label. He uses a shortened version socially. His legal name is Harrison. He changed it professionally after a workplace complaint several years ago. I verified it. My skin went cold again. Another layer. Another mask. Rhodes continued. He told me he works in finance. He does not. He sells compliance consulting. He is currently under review by his company for misrepresenting client outcomes. My stomach rolled. How do you know that? I asked. Rhodes said. He answered. People like him answer when they think they are impressing you. I closed my eyes and a small, quiet rage settled into my bones. Not loud rage. Not screaming rage. The kind that turns into action. The next morning, the locksmith came. I stood by the door in my robe, hair messy, eyes dry. The man replaced the locks and handed me 2 fresh keys. Clean, new, mine. Then I started dismantling my engagement the way you dismantle a trap. I didn't call Harrison. Not yet. First, I called the venue and canceled. Calm and polite. I gave a reason that didn't invite discussion. Family emergency. I asked for confirmation in writing. Then I called the florist. Then the photographer. Then the caterer. Each time, my voice stayed steady. Each time I requested email confirmation. Proof lines. Paper trails. I went into our shared wedding planning folder and removed his access. Quietly. No announcement. I changed my passwords. All of them. Email, banking, social media, everything. The whole time my hands shook, but my decisions did not. Around late afternoon, my phone started buzzing. Harrison calling again. Then texts. Why are the vendors emailing me cancellations? What did you do? Lorelei, pick up. This is insane. Stop this right now. I didn't respond. I took screenshots. Then I did the next correct step. I went to my mother's house. She opened the door and immediately knew something was wrong, because mothers always do. Her face went pale as she looked at me. Honey, she said, what happened? I wanted to tell her everything at once. The notebook, the key, the message, the lie about his name, the way he had been shrinking me for months. But I didn't. I didn't dump the whole mess on her heart in one spill. I just said I ended it. Her eyes filled. Did he hurt you? Not with his hands, I whispered. But yes, she pulled me into a hug and I finally let myself shake inside it. That evening, Harrison showed up at my apartment. I knew because my neighbor texted me, the sweet older woman who watered my plants when I traveled. She wrote, there's a man outside your door. He looks angry. I was not there. That was the point. He left a voicemail that made my skin crawl. His voice was controlled, but the control sounded strained, like a wire about to snap. Lorelei, he said, this is not funny. You're making a huge mistake. Call me back. We need to talk like adults. Then in the next message, the mask slipped. Do you think you're smarter than me? You think you can embarrass me? I made you. You know that, right? You would still be alone if I hadn't chosen you. I sat on my mother's couch listening, and something in me went perfectly still, because there it was, the real sentence, the one he had been saying in smaller ways all along. I saved the voicemails. I saved everything. The next day, I went to my building manager and played the messages. I didn't accuse. I didn't dramatize. I just said, this man no longer has permission to access my unit. Here is his voice. Here is his face. I handed over a photo from my engagement party. I asked them to note it in the system. Then I went one step further. I sent a short, calm email to Harrison's company compliance contact, attaching only what was relevant. His admission of unauthorized entry into someone else's home using a key, that was not his. His aggressive voicemails. His demand for private materials he had no right to possess. No insults. No emotions. Just his own words, time-stamped, sitting in a neat line. I didn't expose him. I just showed the truth to the right person. He called me that night from a different number, I answered. He started with a soft voice. Lorelei, please. This has gotten out of hand. I let him talk. I let him pour out excuses like he was dumping sand on a fire. Then I said quietly, your legal name is Harrison. Silence. The kind of silence that tells you hit the nerve. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice had changed. Smaller, tighter. I know you used my spare key to enter Rhodes's home, I said calmly. I know you lied about your job. And I know you said you made me. His breathing turned sharp. Who told you that? That freak? I didn't bite. I didn't argue. I said one small question. Did you really think I wouldn't document what you said? He went quiet again. Then his voice turned hard. So what now? You're going to ruin my life? I stayed calm. No, you did that yourself. I ended the call. After that, the messages stopped. Not immediately, but fast enough to feel like a door shutting. A week later, I met Rhodes for coffee at a quiet place with cracked leather booths and soft lighting. He was already there, sitting with his hands folded, looking exactly the same as he always had. Calm, observant, unmoved by the chaos. He had helped me survive. I slid into the booth across from him, exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. I canceled everything, I said. Rhodes nodded. That was correct. I stared at him for a long moment. You manipulated him. Rhodes tilted his head slightly. I guided him toward revealing himself. That's manipulation, I said, voice raw. Yes, Rhodes replied unbothered, but it produced safety. I exhaled, a shaky laugh that wasn't really laughter. You're impossible. Rhodes looked down at his coffee, then back up at me. I have been reading, he said. I blinked. Reading what? Interpersonal attachment, he said. Care behaviors? Emotional recognition. I stared. Why? His voice stayed calm, but there was something different in it, something less rehearsed. Because I experienced an unfamiliar sensation yesterday, he said, warmth in my chest. It occurred when you texted me that you were safe. My throat tightened. My eyes stung. Rhodes continued slow. I believe it is relief or affection. The definitions overlap. I swallowed hard. Rhodes, he held my gaze. I do not cry at funerals. I do not understand sentimental days, but I can choose actions. I can choose patterns that protect you. I can choose to be good. My chest hurt, and this time it wasn't fear. It was the strange grief of realizing how close I had come to losing myself, and the strange gratitude of realizing someone had seen it before I did. I reached across the table and placed my hand near his, not touching, just close enough to offer the option. Rhodes looked at my hand like it was a new language. Then carefully, he placed his fingers against mine, light, precise, like he was learning a shape. I am glad you are alive, he said. I breathed out and my voice came soft. Me too. 2 days later, an envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. My hands went cold as I opened it, expecting one last knife twist. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a printed resignation letter, Harrison's name at the bottom, his legal name, and beneath it, one final line, written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Control is most dangerous when it wears a smile. I didn't need to ask who sent it. I stood in my quiet apartment holding that paper, and for the first time in months, I felt my body loosen. Not because the world was safe, but because I had stopped negotiating with someone else's version of my life. And the mic drop truth was simple. He didn't break me. He just proved I was done being owned. Now outside the story for a minute, because I want to say something real. What happened to me wasn't loud. That's the part people miss. Control almost never shows up as a punch. It shows up as a suggestion, a joke, a correction said with a smile. And if you grew up trying to keep the peace, you'll call it love. You'll call it normal. You'll call it your fault. If you ever feel smaller around someone, pay attention. If you keep explaining yourself, pay attention. If you start doubting your own memory, pay attention. You don't have to wait for a disaster to leave. You don't have to collect bruises to prove you were hurt. And if you have someone in your life who doesn't show emotion the way you expect, but consistently shows up with actions that keep you safe, don't ignore that either. Sometimes the most real care is quiet. Sometimes it's imperfect. Sometimes it's simply someone choosing you again and again, even when it would be easier not to. I didn't win by yelling. I won by getting clear. I won by writing things down. I won by removing access. I won by letting the truth speak in his own words to the people who could actually hear it. And I promise you, the moment you stop arguing with someone who needs you confused, your life gets so much quieter in the best way.